we're continuing in this series about what it means to come home to the table. You know, to invite someone to your table in Bible times was to show them honor, to show them acceptance. And so it is no wonder that there are so many stories which involve this idea of inviting someone to come and eat with you, because it was seen at the time as being massively significant. And maybe we've got out of that habit, and maybe we don't see that significance in it, and we don't see that weight in it, but it is definitely there. And it's something that, you know, basically we have to do it every day. We all eat every day in order to survive. And it is more normal to eat in groups than it is to eat by yourself, because, you know, cooking, like, who wants to cook for one person if you can cook for a load of people at the same time? So, God chooses something really ordinary to communicate something really extraordinary. And he really, really does that in this story that I'm going to speak of today. So, here he is. Today we're going to speak about Mephibosheth, or possibly Mephibosheth. Now, I might be saying that wrong, okay? At this point, I really want to say, just in case there's anyone in here who thinks they can say that better than me, Mephibosheth, feel free to have a go. But actually, it turns out that because this story is about 3,000 years old, unless you happen to own one of these and can travel back in time and hear how he pronounces it, you don't know any better than I do. So there you go. I'm just going to pronounce all the names in whatever manner I see fit, and unless you happen to own a TARDIS, you don't know any better than me. So we'll go with that. So, Mephibosheth. Now, you'll find the story in 1 Samuel 9, mostly. 2 Samuel 9, if you want to follow along. But I'm just going to try and tell you some of this story. It actually starts a little bit earlier in 2 Samuel 4. Oh, thank you. Today is a glass of water kind of a day. So Mephibosheth is 5 years old when the news comes to his household that his father, Jonathan, and his granddad, King Saul, have both been killed in battle by the Philistines. And a moment of extraordinary panic hits. Because in these days, when there was a power vacuum, this actually might not be entirely untrue of now. When there was a power vacuum, lots of people rose up and tried to take power. And the one thing that they would want to do if they were trying to take power is to get rid of anybody who might have a claim. Now, because times were even harsher then than they are now, if there was somebody else who might have a claim to the throne you want, like a little kid who's 5 years old, whose dad was the heir to the throne and whose granddad used to be the king, well, they would find him and get rid of him. His life was in danger. And so there was panic in the house. And we read back in 2 Samuel that when this happened, that a nurse picked up Mephibosheth, who is 5 years old. And they are rushing around, and I guess they're trying to get hold of food and things that they need for a journey, and they're trying to work out where they're going to go to hide. And Mephibosheth gets dropped, or he falls. And he is wounded in both of his feet. And because this is 3,000 years ago, where there is no nice Anne Harrods waiting to give you an x-ray, Mephibosheth is lame in both of his feet and in incredible pain for the rest of his days because of that one moment of panic, because of that one mistake that he didn't make. He is lame for the rest of his days. And then we don't hear about him. So there's this little kid, and he's gone from being royalty to being on the run. He's gone from being treasured to being wanting to be got rid of. And he goes into hiding. And we don't hear about him until much later. And he lives in this place of fear. And he probably lives in a place of deep shame as well, because in the thinking at the time, and we don't think like this now, so it's hard to get our heads around, but in the thinking at the time, any injury to your body was like death having a grip on you. You know how we sang earlier, death doesn't have a grip on me anymore. Well, people would have seen an injury and they would have seen it as the grip of death. Any kind of injury or disability or illness, people would have seen as being the grip of death. And so people would have avoided him because they didn't want to be near to death. So Mephibosheth goes and he lives his life in this place until King David has one of his more extraordinary moments. Now, King David is God's chosen one for the people of Israel. He was the chosen king, and he is supposed to represent what God is like to the people. And every now and again, he manages to do that. And here's the moment, one of those moments where David really gets it right. David asked, "Is there anyone still left of the house of Saul to whom I may show kindness for Jonathan's sake?" You see, David and Jonathan used to be best mates. They really loved each other. They were really close. They'd grown up together and they had made a promise. They had made a covenant together that they would always look out for each other. And not only that they would look out for each other, but that they would look out for their line. They would look out for their children and their children's children. And they had made that promise together when they were young men. And they had promised that they would show committed, loyal love, not just to each other, but to their kids and to their kids. So David remembers, and this is some time later, because Mephibosheth appears to have grown up. So this is a while later. Who could I show kindness to for Jonathan's sake? Now, it turns out there was a servant from Saul's household who somehow managed to slip through the net of being destroyed. I don't know. But his name was Ziba. They summoned him to appear before David, and the king said to him, "Are you Ziba?" And presumably he felt a little unnerved at that point because the king was addressing him, but he said, "I'm at your service." And then the king asked, "Is there no one still alive from the house of Saul to whom I can show God's kindness?" So this isn't just David's kindness, this is God's kindness. And I did bang on about this quite a long time back in the autumn. This is chesed. This is the kindness, the loving kindness of God. But in this word is a sense of commitment and promise and loyalty and fierceness, an action that goes way beyond our kind of fluffy thing. And Ziba answered the king, "Oh, actually, there is still a son of Jonathan. He is lame in both feet." Clearly, this is the most significant thing about Mephibosheth as far as everybody is concerned. "Where is he?" the king asked. And Ziba answered, "He is at the house of Machir, son of Amiel, in Lodabar." I'm making all those pronunciations up, just so you know. Just in case anyone ever asks you to read the first chapter of Nehemiah in a Bible study, just make it up. Nobody knows. So he says this. He's in this place called Lodabar. Well, Debar means either, good Hebrew, words or pasture, kind of a play on words, or it can mean thing. And lo means no. So essentially, it turns out that Mephibosheth is living in a place which is called, well, we would call it nowhere. It's way up north in land where there is no pasture and nobody wants to live there, and frankly, nobody does. And that is the place where Mephibosheth, with his fear and his shame and his pain, is living his life. It's not great. This is not a happy story so far. It gets better. So King David had him brought from nowhere, from the house of Machir, son of Ammiel. And when Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, came to David, he bowed down to him to pay him honor. He must have been terrified. Man most likely to want you dead asks you to come to his house. But he didn't have a choice. He was the king. So David said, Mephibosheth, because David knew how to pronounce it. At your service, he replied. Don't be afraid, David said to him, for I will surely show you kindness for the sake of your father, Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table. Can you see what's happening here? David is taking Mephibosheth, who is at the lowest point it is possible to be, and he is lifting him up, and he is bringing him into this place of honor. This is the most like God that David could possibly be. This is his high moment. He is picking up. He is showing God's committed love to this person who is so injured and so in fear and so in shame, and lifting them up and bringing them into a place of honor. And this is what a place of honor looks like. It's a place at the table with your name written on it. This is what the kingdom of God looks like. It is a place at the table with your name written on it. And Mephibosheth bowed down and he said, "Great!" No, Mephibosheth bowed down and he said, "What is your servant that you would notice a dead dog like me?" Does Mephibosheth run in and take his place at the table? No, essentially, Mephibosheth tells David that what he's doing is wrong. He chooses to stay in that place of saying, I'm a dead dog. I am of no worth. And you don't want to come near me because I am death. You see, Karina. Okay. You see, what has happened in Mephibosheth's life is this. There have been barriers. And so although the table is there, right, there you go. Sanj, you can hold that. Actually, Karina, you can hold that. Sanjay, could you take it to Graham, and then to David, and then to Anna, and then to Thias, who is going to move and sit on that chair over there for me. Thank you. Keep going. No, you can sit there. Just hold it. Yeah, I just need it to go all the way around and then come back to me. This is what's happened. Because of the pain, because of what Mephibosheth has experienced, because what has happened to him, for him, it's what happened to him when he was a really, really little kid. It was something that he had no power over. But because of that, that's got to come back to me now. Yeah, because otherwise John might be able to get to the table. We can't have that. Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay. This is what's happened in his life, isn't it? So, fear and shame, the way he feels about himself, and lies that he is believing about what God is like and what David is like. He's believed a lie about what David is like, hasn't he? He's believed that David will kill him the moment that he looks at him. He's believed a lie. And that is keeping him away from the table. It's keeping him out of the place where he's actually always belonged. This is the place where he always belonged. And then David does this. Then the king summoned Ziba, Saul's steward, and said to him, I've given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family, so you and your sons and your servants are going to farm this land and you're going to provide for him. And Mephibosheth, the grandson of your master, will always eat at my table. Basically, David just doesn't listen, does he? Like, Mephibosheth comes and says, well, look, I'm a dead dog, don't come near me. But David doesn't listen, and David does something which I would like to demonstrate. But basically, what I need to do is to find, is there a dad who's here with their son who thinks they're capable of lifting their son over this barrier? Is anyone going to volunteer for that? Right, in which case, have you got Zachary? Come here, mate. Excellent. Right, okay, so, Ben, you're King David, so you can come in here, it's your table, okay? Okay. Right. Okay, Zachary, my friend. That one's broken, let's not use that one right now. Okay, this is your chair, okay? But there's a problem, and you are not able to do anything about it. But I tell you what, your dad can, because it's actually his chair too. So could you just lift him over? This is what David does with Mephibosheth. Right, so you get to sit at the table, and you get to choose a bit of fruit, and then you can run away and hide, and I severely apologise. Do you like fruit, or is that like a punishment? There you go, give some fruit. Dad really approves. Right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so that's how David deals with it. David lifts Mephibosheth over the barrier. He says, that doesn't matter to me. Come and eat at my table. And he gives him a place at his table. And Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem because he always ate at the king's table. And he was lame in both feet. So Mephibosheth lives with his pain, but he does take his place at the king's table. And it's not a one-off invitation. It's not come around for dinner, Mephibosheth. It's like, this is your place at my table. You belong here. This is yours forever. Like the little sign on the card says Mephibosheth forever. It's his place at the table. And actually it's his son's place and it's his grandson's places. It's his line. And he gets out of this, he gets a sense of belonging, a sense of value, and a sense of home. Now, we've still got this, so we need to fast forward. We need to fast forward to somebody who's working under the promise of God that he will always show love to his children and to his people. Someone who is able to actually do something about this. So we fast forward 2,000 years, and we come to Zaccheus. Again, I don't know if that's how you say it. There we go. If you've got a time machine, feel free to correct me. We come to Zaccheus, and what we learn about Zaccheus, and I'm going to be really quick with this because I know I've only got 5 more minutes. I'm watching. What we know about him is what Luke chooses to tell us, which is that he is rich, that he is very unpopular, he's a tax collector, and he's short. He lives in Jericho, which is the place of the money. Jerusalem is the place of the spirituality, and Jericho is the place of the money. And he is the chief tax collector in the place of the money. So when Luke tells us he's rich, he really means it. And Zaccheus is short. Now, Luke doesn't tell us that just for a little bit of colour. He tells us that because being short was considered to be really, really bad. In fact, probably Luke only mentions it because Mephibosheth has dwarfism. Mephibosheth isn't just slightly under height. What can I do? I'm not pronouncing it that badly. Zaccheus, okay, rewind the tape. Zaccheus has dwarfism. Zaccheus has a disability just like Mephibosheth. And that disability makes him unpopular. And maybe he chooses an unpopular job because he's unpopular anyway. Who knows? But in whatever case it is, he is super unpopular. So when it comes to Jesus, one of the barriers is the crowd. And what Zaccheus doesn't do is try and wiggle his way through to the front like my kids would always do at like parades and things so that they can see better. He doesn't wiggle his way through to the front. He climbs a tree. He looks at Jesus from a distance. Here is a man who has heard about Jesus and is intrigued, but he is kept at a distance. And I wonder if he is kept at a distance because he has got some fear and some shame and some things that people have said to him about his height and some things that people have said to him about his job that are keeping him at a distance. But Jesus just walks right up to him and he says this, Zaccheus, get down. I'm staying at your house. What Jesus does with this is drop it. All of that shame, all of that fear, it just ends up left on the ground. Because Jesus honors Zaccheus by saying, I'm coming to your house. Jesus picks up the food. Jesus picks up the table and he takes it with him. Zaccheus doesn't have to come to Jesus. And that is exactly what he is doing with us at the moment. He is saying to us, first, you're invited in, whoever you are, whatever things people have said to you, however you feel about yourself on a bad day, whatever your job is, whatever your body looks like, you are invited. And there is no one who is excluded from that invitation into the kingdom. Even if you've never heard the name Jesus before, today you are not excluded from that invitation to come and eat with the King and to take your place at the table of the King. But he also says, here I am, I stand at the door and knock. Anyone who opens that door and invites me in, I will come in and eat with them. That's what he says. And yet we let things like this hold us back from that all the time. And maybe you don't have this much. Maybe you've only got like this much. But this much is enough that it can get in the way of your relationship with Jesus. It can get in the way of that friendship, which is like the friendship where you just eat together. Just this much. This much can get in the way. This much can get in the way. But do you know what? The great thing is that God says you can leave it behind, and you can leave it behind today. You do not have to wait. You can leave it behind today. In my heart, I want this room in the supernatural to look like, I said it this morning, Glastonbury after everybody has left. And left behind their tents and all of their rubbish and their empties. I want you to leave this rubbish behind today. And we're going to give you an opportunity to do that. The band are going to come up. So quick reminder. Because that is all there is to say. Don't live with this in your life. If you are like Mephibosheth, maybe there's something that someone said once. Something that someone said in one moment once, and it caused a wound, and it just pops up every now and again. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's something someone said over and over and over again, and it caused like something really big. Whatever it is, don't live with it. Why should you? When you have a Saviour who can destroy it on the cross. I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to hand over to Sanjay. Lord Jesus, I pray that you would speak to us about who you say we are. Lord, when there are parts of us inside which say, I'm not good enough, I'm not important, I don't belong here, I'm as good as dead. Where there are parts of us that say that, even if it's only every now and again, Lord Jesus, we just want to be done with them. Lord, we don't even just want to be lifted over them into your table. Because we know that through you, all of death has lost its grip on us. And we just declare that we are who you say we are. That we are precious sons and daughters of the King who have the right to eat at the King's table and who the King wants to come and stay with. Lord, would you speak to us?